There is a reason why AI companies have a hard time implementing their own technology. And it might just be because AI is more beneficial to individuals than it is organizations.
I built bots before they were cool.
There are two basic business models for AI applications. The first model is when AI is used to replace effort. Some examples of this would include a ninth grader who's writing a term paper with a chatbot, using AI to translate from one language to another, or using a chatbot in place of an IT help desk. These are all, for the most part, one-to-one relationships between what is replaced and what replaces it. The second AI business model is using AI to not replace, but to multiply effort. The ability to scale work is AI's real value. And this is the one thing that organizations have had a really hard time doing. There's trouble anytime an organization tries to deploy AI with a model that's different than the two I just described. A good example is the way Microsoft deployed Copilot. The assumption was that since Office already had a huge installed base, additional Copilot licenses would be really pretty easy to sell. Microsoft didn't seriously change any of the Office suite, but they did constantly remind people that it was now AI-powered, without any real instruction or integration. The real problem is that they kept the focus on Office. That's not how people use AI, even when they're using it with Word or Excel. You can't just shoehorn AI into an existing product and call it integration. It doesn't work that way. And Copilot became a slightly less annoying version of Clippy. Another common problem is either overestimating or underestimating what AI is going to do. For example, last year, Salesforce.com very publicly announced how they were replacing a lot of human labor with artificial intelligence. They did it in areas that included customer support, software development, and marketing. This is basically the first business model, right? Where you direct replacement of effort with artificial intelligence. But replacing people is more difficult than replacing tasks. Take software development. Writing code is only one part of what software developers do. They also attend design meetings, they work through architecture problems, they debug systems, they test software, they integrate systems, they deal with security, compliance, documentation. At the same time they overestimated AI's ability to replace workers, they also underestimated the effect that AI would have on their customers. Some customers discovered that they could use general-purpose AI tools basically to replace Salesforce. So while organizations are trying to use AI to reduce their costs, their customers might be using AI to reduce their dependence on their organization. That's a much bigger problem. There will always be adaptation periods. For example, it takes 10 years to get acceptance of a new payment system, whether it's credit cards, ATMs, electronic payment. They all took about 10 years. And I believe that AI will have a similar adaptation rollout period. But I also believe that we're well into that acceptance period. And most of the effects of the first business model that we've talked about, I think have already taken place. These were the easiest and most obvious implementations of AI. They were the low-hanging fruit. So if you have survived up to this point without being replaced by AI, I think you're probably pretty safe. That's just my opinion. As an aside, if you're in an industry where employment is threatened by AI, I really encourage you to learn as much as possible about the problem. I know the natural tendency is to dig in, deny the effectiveness of AI, wait for regulations that may never arrive, or simply pretend AI doesn't exist. None of these are particularly good strategies. You owe it to yourself to understand the situation, and that includes learning how to use AI. There's another uncomfortable part about this discussion. A lot of our reaction to artificial intelligence is tied to our relationship with effort. I'm not trying to make a commentary on craftsmanship here or artistry, but if you equate the amount of time it takes to create something with its end value, the future might be pretty upsetting. Because we have reached the point where things that once required enormous amounts of time, expertise, and money can now be created very quickly and inexpensively. And let's face it, if we could have our vehicle serviced for $100 and one shop would take 30 minutes and the other would take 2 days, I think we'd all take the 30-minute job. But this brings us to the fundamental problem organizations have scaling with AI. When individuals replace effort with AI, they almost always achieve a multiplying effect in their effort. And even when it's done correctly, organizations very seldom get that multiplying effect. For example, let's say a law firm uses artificial intelligence. I'll send you a contract. Your firm uses AI to review the contract, probably by a paralegal. Maybe work that once required 3 hours now takes 20 minutes. That would be very valuable to the law firm. The organization basically replaced effort with artificial intelligence. But what changed for me, the client? I still sent you the contract. I still waited for the review. I still received an email or a phone call a day or two later with the results. And I probably received roughly the same bill. From my perspective, almost nothing changed. The organization captured the benefit of the AI. Now consider what happens if I use ChatGPT to review a contract myself. And yes, I do this. I'm not only saving the legal fees, I'm also getting a couple days back of my time. I could ask questions immediately, I can examine clauses, I can compare versions, I can review another contract, then another and another. With the time I saved, I can do entirely different work. The law firm used AI to replace effort. I used AI to multiply my effort. I scaled myself. The organization did. This is the problem a lot of organizations are running into when they try to deploy artificial intelligence. The fundamental reason individuals can use AI to scale while organizations struggle is that organizations are already scaled. That's why they are organizations. Organizations were created to coordinate large numbers of people, resources, skills, and systems. They weren't set up to process artificial intelligence. Organizations accumulated capabilities. That was the great economic advantage of organizations. Scale belonged to them, and the threshold to entry was always very high. Artificial intelligence is changing those relationships. Individuals and small teams can now acquire capabilities without acquiring the organizations that traditionally produced them. We're seeing this particularly in publishing and media. Publisher. As somebody who owns a one-person publishing company, I'm not only able to publish professional quality books, but I can also run sophisticated ad campaigns in countries I've never visited. That's not replacing effort, that's multiplying effort. The same thing is happening in the media. Big studios build empires on movies with $200 million budgets and a reliance on CGI. Now they're competing for attention with individuals carrying cell phones. It doesn't mean organizations are going away. It doesn't mean individuals will replace all the corporations. And it certainly doesn't mean AI automatically makes one person as capable as 1,000. But something important has changed for all of modern history. If you wanted more capability, you needed a larger organization. More employees, more capital, more infrastructure, more management. AI allows individuals to acquire these capabilities without acquiring all the organization that traditionally came with them. And that might be one of the most important economic consequences of artificial intelligence. For the first time, individuals can acquire capabilities that once required entire organizations. If you like this kind of content, do me a favor and give this video a like and subscribe. I'd like to get back to some more technical topics. See you soon.